Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, hope you're doing well. I've just come from my local fuel station who had half of their pumps turned off and they had the little things hanging on saying out of order, and they had cones out as well, covering up all but one lane that was directly in front of the shop. And I said, oh, you having a revamp or something? And they said, no, we just keep getting people running off without paying for fuel, so we've closed all but the ones that we can see directly next to us, which has caused a bit of a nightmare in traffic on the thingy, but they just can't keep losing money. I didn't even think that was still a thing these days. Are people still really like bilking fuel, running off? I know it happens every once in a while, but is it really that often that you need to close half the pumps? They said it's just happening several times a day. They said, have you not seen the news? It's a real thing. So I've looked it up and I found this article on the Daily Mail, which we'll have a look at. Unfortunately, Daily Mail is like catching an STD for your computer with all of the adverts and everything on there, but we'll try our best to pick through it. Anyway, the article is saying that fuel thefts rise 362% compared to pre-pandemic as petrol stations suffer increase in crime similar to shoplifting spike. So I'm assuming shoplifting's really taken off as well. Some 39,500 drivers between July and September drove off without paying for fuel. This is a 77% increase on the same period in 2022 and up to 362% on 2019. RAC Foundation says the rise could be due to systematic criminal activity. Well, from what I did, just having a bit of research from this, once I've got back here to the office and kind of looked at it, yeah, it seems like it's a real thing. And I've learned the new term double tanking. People are fitting extra tanks into the boot of their car, double filling up. So if they're going to go and steal fuel, they may as well steal a lot while they're at it. Or people filling up, jerry cans in the back of their van or something and then spinning off. You would have thought with all the cameras that we've got these days, they just wouldn't get away with it. But I guess it's quite easy to get a set of fake plates. I don't think it's going to be top of the police's priority. Well, at least that's not what I understand from the people that I spoke to. Because, of course, I asked my local petrol station, don't you have CCTV and don't you have ANPR and things like that? And they say it's just fake plates and the police aren't particularly interested. The article says petrol station forecourt owners have attempted to trace 39,563 drivers who have driven away without paying for fuel between July and September. That is an absolutely ridiculous figure. I understand here it's saying the RAC thinks that it could be due to systematic criminal activity. Well, I can understand that a lot of it could well be. Fuel prices are high. I'm sure there is a kind of pretty good second-hand black market for fuel if you can get it. I can't think that can be all of that. 39,500 incidents in that short period of time. I just don't think so. The British Oil Security Syndicate, or BOSS, which campaigns to reduce crime on forecourts, estimates the practice of bilking, stealing fuel, costs each filling station across the country an average of £10,500 each per year. That's a pretty staggering amount, really, and I don't think that the majority of fuel stations are making huge amounts of money. Don't get me wrong, the new ones that have set up where they've got fast food outlets, they've got shops selling really expensive food, and they've got everything you can imagine. It's like a mini supermarket with a fuel station on it, are obviously doing very well. But your general fuel station, where the majority of their sales are fuel, I don't think there's a huge markup on fuel. And while you can say that the fuel industry is probably doing incredibly well, therefore they won't miss it, well, it's not them that's paying for it, is it? It's the people who own the forecourt. Now, they might be a large group, but usually they're franchises, which means that the franchisee is having to pay out of their pocket to replace that fuel that's been stolen where they haven't been paid. So I can imagine if you are a petrol station owner and you keep seeing people filling up and driving off without paying, it must drive you absolutely mad. I'm surprised there haven't been more incidents of violence reported, because it would certainly upset me. It would be the same as someone coming in saying could they test drive a car and driving off of it and feeling like they could get away with it. That's pretty hard behaviour to swallow, isn't it? It says the maximum penalty for drivers convicted of making off without payment, an offence under the Theft Act of 1978, is 2 years in prison and or an unlimited fine. You would have thought that would be enough to put most people off, wouldn't it? It would certainly put me off the idea of wanting to steal fuel. If there was any chance whatsoever of going to prison, I imagine that is absolutely the maximum, and it is very rarely handed out for this type of incident. Interestingly, there's a quote here from the RAC Foundation director, Steve Gooding. While it may be the cost of living crisis that's tempting some people to risk driving off without paying, the real headache for the fuel suppliers is if this is a sign of more systematic criminal activity. I guess, yeah, there's always going to be people pinching stuff and the odd person running off, which is why I was surprised to hear that it was such a regular thing, even in our sleepy Burnham-on-Sea, which, to be fair, is a holiday destination, so you've got a lot of people coming in from elsewhere. I'm not saying they're all criminals, but there's going to be an element, isn't there? I imagine there's more temptation to steal somewhere away from home where you're less likely to be caught than there is by home. So I don't know. I can't say that that's 100% it because it seems like it is happening everywhere. The article goes on to say, the message to anyone tempted to bilk the service station must be, don't fill up if you can't pay up, because getting caught is a real possibility and financial losses to companies ultimately lead to a higher price for us all, which, yeah, is not ideal, is it? I don't think I'd be particularly happy if people were constantly stealing from fuel stations while I was there filling up and paying a pretty hefty premium for fuel these days, and it meant that my prices were going up because the fuel station's going to have to charge more. In fact, in our area, Burnham-on-Sea, the fuel prices are about 10p more expensive than the next town over, say Bridgewater. And I know there's logistics involved, difficulty of getting that fuel to it, there's more costs involved. I wonder if the amount of incidents of fuel being stolen leads the petrol stations to have to put up the price to cover the loss. I mean, what else can they do, really? It's tricky, isn't it? Because what would you suggest to the petrol station owners? You could say that they could kind of take on the idea of doing what they do in America, and they do at some pumps now in the UK, where you pre-charge a card before you pay, and therefore you can fill up with fuel afterwards, only up to the limit that you're allowed, normally like, what is it, £99. That way, payment is already kind of guaranteed before they take the fuel. But I guess there has to be an element of loss leader there, because the petrol station owners, as I say, don't make a huge markup on fuel, believe it or not, and they want you to come into the shop to buy their goods, chocolate bar, drinks, meal deal for your lunch, because that is where they're actually going to make a decent amount of money. So if they encourage everyone to pay at the pump, they're more likely to just hop back in the car and get on again, aren't they? So I guess there must be an element of it pays to have people coming into the shops and get those things, rather than making them pay at the pump and risking them not coming into the shop and buying the other items that you have for sale. Not to mention the fact that you're going to have to spend money on putting these kind of automated systems in, and then what happens if they break and they don't work properly? It's hardly an ideal situation, and it seems hardly fair that the petrol station owners will be the ones having to invest just to stop people from stealing from them. I'd be interested to know your thoughts. Let me know if you've noticed more bilking, double tanking, or making off without payment from any forecourts near you. Have you seen it happen? Do you work in a petrol station? Has it happened to you? And what do you think the answer is? I guess more and more people feel like with the cost of living going up, expenses are getting high, no one wants to give up motoring, given any kind of chance, do they? So if the police aren't really enforcing it, then what else can be done about it? I don't know. Either way, I hope you're finding these kind of news review videos interesting. Let me know if you're enjoying them. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. Let me know that this is something you're enjoying. To keep up to date with everything else you don't see on YouTube, you can always follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget to check out shiftingmetal.co.uk. You can find all of our discount codes on there, as well as merchandise, should you want any. And if you're looking to sell your car, don't forget to head over to my website, carsboughtformore.com. Enter all your information. We will give you a tailored quote specific to your car, try and make it the best price going, offer to collect it, and pay you the same day. I think that's everything. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.